Feeding the Future, Gut Health and Strategic Scour Solutions with MSPRS Resistant Starch. Carla Shabaga, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
How's winter treating you?
Oh, very good. Winter has been cold, but I think spring is on its way.
Well, today we're going to focus a little bit on exploring how and why producers use MSPRS resistant starch in animal nutrition. We're going to focus on the gut microbiome development and strategic applications during scour events. Are you ready for a good discussion, Carla?
I sure am.
So when we talk about gut microbiome development, how does MSPRS resistant starch support the development of a robust gut microbiome in young animals? And can you explain the mechanism and how and why it's a game changer for producers?
Absolutely. MSPRS resistant starch is a fermentable fiber product. Basically, it's resistant to digestion by the enzymes in the gut and the small intestine, and it is instead fermented and digested by the friendly bacteria that reside in the gut microbiome. Those friendly bacteria digest the resistant starch, they grow and they proliferate, and they have an impact on the overall health of the intestinal environment through several mechanisms, honestly. They grow and proliferate, they take up space, physically preventing pathogenic bacteria from taking hold, but they also compete for resources in the area. So they use up all the resources, so there's nothing left for the bad bacteria to use to grow. Um, the friendly bacteria produce metabolites that reduce the pH in the gut. That creates an unfavorable environment for certain types of bacteria. And they also create other metabolites like butyrate that go on to fuel the cells that line the colon. And the cells that line the colon are responsible for creating a mucosal layer that traps pathogens. So feeding MSPRS fuels the gut, the friendly bacteria that reside in the gut microbiome. Those friendly bacteria are what actually has the impact on keeping the intestinal environment running smoothly.
So what about strategic use in scour events? So for instance, Carla, what does makes MSPRS resistant starch effective when used during scour events? And are there specific properties of the product that contribute to faster recovery and improved animal health?
So what MSPRS does when during a scours event is it tends to feed those friendly bacteria and dry up scours really quickly. Producers that use our product during a scour event say that within a couple of feedings that uh, it has dried them up. It has cleared up scours. And how that works again goes back to feeding the friendly bacteria in the gut microbiome. The the bacteria produce those metabolites that just sort of take care of all the issues. So,
Okay, so what about product composition and benefits, Carla? So MSPRS resistant starch is derived from potato starch. So how can you explain why this is important and what makes your product different in the market, specifically with the potato starch?
so there's different types of resistant starches, and ours is considered an RS2, which is only found in raw potatoes and green bananas, basically. And the resistant starch from potatoes feeds a certain type of friendly bacteria in the gut microbiome. And the shift in the genera of bacteria is quite significant when you compare it to a standard feed with no MSPRS. So our product is upcycled as a co-product of the potato manufacturing industry or process. And what we do with our raw material is we basically concentrate the resistant starch and we clean it up so that it's a very pure form of resistant starch. That's important because that's the mechanism of action. That's the component that you want in your product to feed those friendly bacteria.
So let's wrap up on feed efficiency. How does incorporating MSPRS resistant starch into feed improve the feed efficiency for producers? And are there measurable outcomes they should expect?
So MSPRS, when it's fed early on in the diet, it helps to establish the friendly bacteria in the gut microbiome. And those friendly bacteria really are what have the impact, right? As I've mentioned before, it has the impact on keeping things running properly in the intestinal environment. When you put a little bit of MSPRS in the diet, those friendly bacteria are present, and they're always ready to go, right? So that later on down the pathway, if you do have a scour event and you give a little more MSPRS to tackle the issue, it will mitigate clinical signs of disease much faster than if was no MSPRS added to the diet early on.
Well, feed forward, Carla Shabaga, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.